We now have the view models in place. The next and final block for the basic MVVM architecture is adding the view. The view code, mostly XAML, will be using data binding statements to bind on the state exposed by the view model. Because of the change notification system that we implemented on the view models, the views will be notified about changes happening in the view model and will update the view accordingly. Alright, time for the next part of the demo, where we are going to introduce the view code. The third part in model view model is the view. We've already added the view models, so now we'll add the views. You may already have guessed where I'm going to put my views. Well, indeed, I'm going to create a views folder. So let's go here and right click and create another folder. Let's call that the views folder. So we already have the Pi overview view model. So what I'll now create is the view for the Pi overview. So I'll add a new item here and I'll select content page and then I'll name my page Pi overview view. This is of course going to create a new XAML file. And to start, I'm going to do some housekeeping here. I'm going to already include the background image that is referring to the background image in the actual Android and also iOS project, and I'm also going to set the title. Now we'll add the UI content. So let us remove the current stack layout and let me paste in the actual view code. You will find this XAML code in the views folder in the assets for this course. What is in here? Well, nothing really special. In my UI, I have two buttons at the top within this parent grid. Then I have a list view for which I have created a data template. Each of the view cells that will be inside of my list view will display a Pi using an image and two labels. In these controls, I'm using plain data binding to actually visualize the data. As you can see for this label here, I use the Pi name through data binding. And over here, I'm using the price. For the image, we're binding to the image URL. There we go. Now what I'll need to do now is I'll need to let my list view know that it needs to bind to the observable collection of Pis on this view model here. Well, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to use plain data binding here to specify that the item source property should be getting its value from a data binding statement. And I'm going to bind to the Pis collection. Now you may be wondering, how does my view know about the view model? Well, that is a fantastic question. At this point, they do not know about each other, so the data binding will still fail. I will fix that very soon. In fact, I will fix that in the next demo. For now, the data binding is set up. It's not going to work yet, but it's set up. All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll create also the second view. That will be the Pi detail view. Again, the same housekeeping, I'll set the background image as well as the title. Let's also remove the stack layout here. And let's bring in some XAML that you'll also find again with the assets of this course. I've pasted in quite a lot of XAML. Let me take you through it quickly. So what is important is that I have an image here, which is going to bind to the selected pi.image URL. That is the property that I have exposed here on the detail view model. So I'm dotting into the properties of the selected Pi. The selected Pi is going to be the source for this data binding. And I do the same thing for the name, the price, the description, and the in-stock property. Finally, at the bottom, I have this button to save the Pi. So that is the code for the view. One important thing to note here is that at this point, I have no code in my code behind, except what is there by default. And the same goes, of course, for the Pi detail view. There's no code in there. That's actually what I wanted. I wanted to keep my code behind as clean as possible. But we're missing something. In fact, if you think what I just said, in the overview, we have this item source that needs to bind to the view model's Pi's property. But how is that link going to work? Well, let me take you back to the slides where I'll explain what I'll need to do next.